The quiet hum of a perfect summer evening was shattered by the distant wail of sirens. I was in the middle of what should have been a simple, peaceful cookout. Just me, my log grill, and a few friends enjoying juicy steaks sizzling over the flames. But suddenly, my backyard transformed from a place of relaxation into the center of a heated confrontation. You see, the HOA had called 911 on me. Yes, they actually reported my innocent steak cookout as some kind of emergency. What they didn't know, and what makes this whole situation almost unbelievable, is that I'm the county fire marshal, the very person who oversees fire safety in this entire area. It's almost ironic, isn't it? The people supposed to keep order accusing the one person trained to handle fire risks of causing trouble. The tension between me and the HOA wasn't just about stakes or smoke. It was about authority, trust, and boundaries. As the flashing lights grew closer, I glanced at the log grill, steady, controlled flames licking the air, and then at the neighborhood watchful eyes peering from behind curtains and through windows. This was more than just a cookout gone wrong. It was a story about control, misunderstanding, and maybe even a little bit of rebellion. I could feel the weight of questions pressing down. Why did the HOA feel threatened enough to call 911? Was this a simple misunderstanding or part of a bigger conflict brewing in our community? And most importantly, how would I, with my role and knowledge, handle the chaos about to unfold right in my own backyard? The fire trucks rolled up, and the officers stepped out, looking around suspiciously. I could see their hesitation when they recognized me, not just as the homeowner but as the county fire marshal. What happened next would change everything, but right now, standing there with smoke curling into the evening sky, the air thick with anticipation, I knew this was just the beginning. How do you prove safety when suspicion is already in the air? That's the story I'm about to share with you, a story of flames, fire codes, and unexpected battles right where you least expect them. Stay with me because what happens next isn't what you'd imagine. The flashing lights faded slightly as the fire crew and police officers gathered near the edge of my yard. I could feel their eyes on me, searching for any sign that I'd lost control of the situation. But the truth was, I wasn't just calm because I was trained, I was calm because this wasn't the first time I'd faced this kind of tension, both professionally and personally. See, being the county fire marshal means more than just responding to emergencies. It means knowing how easily fear can spread, how a small spark can turn into a wildfire. Sometimes literally, sometimes in people's minds. But lately, my role in the community had been complicated by the HOA's growing distrust. They'd been on edge, enforcing rules with an iron fist, turning neighbor against neighbor. And I was caught right in the middle. A few months ago, the HOA had tightened regulations on open flames, fire pits, grills, even candles on porches, under the guise of safety. But many felt it was about control, about keeping everyone in line. I understood the need for safety. After all, my job was to protect lives and property. But I also saw how rules, when taken too far, could suffocate a community's spirit. That night, the steaks on my log grill were more than just dinner. They were a statement. A way to remind myself and my neighbors that enjoying simple things safely shouldn't be a crime. I'd spent years educating people about fire risks, and here I was being accused by the very people I'd sworn to protect. When the HOA made that 911 call, I wasn't just facing an accusation, I was facing a test of trust. How could I show them that my grill, my fire, was under control? How could I calm not just the flames, but the growing fire of suspicion between neighbors? As the officers approached, I glanced around and saw the faces peeking from windows and porches, some curious, some judging. I wondered if they understood what I was up against, the tightrope between safety and freedom, authority and community. This wasn't just a story about a cookout or a complaint. It was about the invisible flames that burn between people, the fear, the misunderstanding, the need to be heard and trusted. And as the night stretched on, I knew that the real heat wasn't coming from the grill. It was in the silence before the conversation, in the moments when the truth hangs in the balance. What would happen when I finally spoke up? Would they listen? Or would the small fire grow into something much harder to control? As the fire trucks idled quietly by the curb and the officers exchanged polite but wary glances, I felt a flicker of frustration rise inside me. The HOA's call had turned my simple cookout into a public spectacle, but more than that, it highlighted a deeper rift in our neighborhood, one that no amount of fire safety knowledge could easily mend. Among the neighbors watching from their porches was Linda, a woman known for her sharp tongue and unwavering loyalty to the HOA's strict rules. She'd always been the first to report infractions, no matter how minor. I tried to reach out to her before, hoping to build some trust, but every conversation ended in cold shoulders and clipped words. Tonight, her disapproving gaze felt heavier than the smoke rising from the grill. But Linda wasn't the only complication. My wife, Sarah, had been quietly watching from the side, torn between supporting me and fearing the fallout this incident could bring. She knew how much this neighborhood drama drained me, how every confrontation chipped away at the peace we'd worked so hard to build at home. Her worry added a new layer of pressure, the personal clashing with the professional. The HOA board itself had become a battleground. Some members genuinely wanted safety. Others seemed driven by control and power, pushing rules that felt arbitrary and suffocating. I'd heard whispers about upcoming meetings where they planned to tighten regulations even further, banning all outdoor flames without exception. For me, that was crossing a line. How could we live and celebrate as a community if fear ruled every backyard and porch? Standing there, I wrestled with a moral dilemma that wasn't just about rules or fire. It was about balancing safety with freedom, authority with respect, and enforcement with empathy. Could I uphold my duty as fire marshal while defending the simple joys of life? Was it possible to bridge the widening gap before it turned into a full-blown conflict? As the officers approached, I noticed one of them glance at the grill and then back at me, their expression unreadable. I could tell they were unsure, was I the troublemaker or the expert trying to prevent one? Suddenly, a faint sound from down the street caught my attention. A distant argument, voices raised. It was a reminder that tensions in the neighborhood weren't confined to my yard. The HOA's iron grip was sparking unrest in unexpected places, and I was now entangled in something bigger than a steak cookout. I glanced at Sarah, whose eyes met mine with silent support. But I knew this night was far from over. The flames from the grill were steady, but the fire between neighbors was unpredictable and growing. What wasn't clear yet was how far this would go. Would I be forced to take a stand that risked my career, my marriage, and the fragile peace in our community? Or could there be a way to turn this heat into something constructive, something that brought people together instead of tearing them apart? The answers felt just out of reach, like smoke slipping through fingers. But one thing was certain, this story wasn't just about a grill or an HOA complaint. It was about people, pride, and the invisible sparks that ignite when trust is lost. The night air grew heavier, thick with smoke and something else, something like the charge before a storm. Every glance, every whispered word felt like a spark ready to ignite. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, tighter with every second. The officer's eyes flicked between me and the grill, then toward the crowd gathering along the street. The tension was palpable, like a wire stretched too thin. I caught Linda's gaze again, cold, accusing, unyielding. She stepped forward, voice sharp, cutting through the murmurs. "This isn't about safety anymore," she said, loud enough for many to hear. "It's about control. About who gets to decide what's right in this neighborhood." Her words hit like a punch. I could feel the crowd shift, some nodding, others frowning. The HOA's grip, already tight, was fracturing, but the cracks were dangerous. Sarah moved closer, her hand briefly brushing my arm, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone, but also that what lay ahead could break more than just rules. Then, from the edge of the crowd, a new voice rose. Tom, one of the quieter neighbors, stepped forward hesitantly. "Look, we all want safety," he said, voice shaky but earnest. "But maybe there's room for understanding. Maybe rules shouldn't feel like chains." His words added another layer to the tension, a hope, but fragile. The officers exchanged looks. They were stuck in the middle of something bigger than a fire complaint. They had protocols to follow, but also the sense that this night was about more than just flames. Suddenly, a sharp noise cracked through the air. A broken glass, a slammed door. Everyone flinched. It was a reminder that beneath the surface, Tempers were boiling over. Secrets whispered in hushed tones. Rumors about past HOA disputes, personal grudges, and power plays that no one wanted to face head-on. I wanted to say something, to calm the rising storm, but the words caught in my throat. What I didn't expect was the knock on my front door. 3 sharp raps that echoed through the quiet street. I glanced toward the house, then back at the crowd. Who could it be at this hour? A new player in this unfolding drama? The moment froze. In that heartbeat, the fire's glow seemed to flicker uncertainly, as if even the flames sensed the brewing confrontation. Everything was about to change. The unanswered question hung in the air. What, or who, was waiting on the other side of that door?